Member from St. Catherine, Northwestern, sorry.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I will be short after the spokesperson on agriculture was so fulsome. I understand that he consulted with the member from Western Kingston. And he was an expert in dairy himself. I am sure the farmers are pleased, especially in the small ruminant sector, to have goats now being fully considered and fully catered to under this particular dairy concept. And this is important because it adds a value producer that can allow for higher profits, but also more affordable meats coming from the goat farming sector in particular. As you would have indicated, and the member from Western, where you come from, Eastern Westmoreland, that of course the types of animal now have to come full force into the conversation, because the genetics, especially the milk producing genetics, and in the case of Jamaica, the dual milk meat producing genetics is going to be of high importance for us to consider to get distributed to the farmers who initially were meat producers in the main and not necessarily milk producers. There is also a need for an immediate understanding of the risk associated with liquid protein, i.e. milk. Liquid protein and egg are chief facilitators of foodborne illnesses, and there must be strict definition of how it should be harvested, how it should be treated, and how it should be distributed. The negatives of it can be extensive if we are not careful about how they are to be treated. Additionally, in Indian countries like India, Prime Minister, there is a whole micro dairy system that exists. Indeed, over 80 million households in India have less than 5 cows for dairy, and they contribute up to 60% of the dairy milk production in India. There is a serious opportunity, especially for female-led households, for us to have a micro dairy industry. And I speak for Northwest St. Catherine, who is in proximity to both True Juice and Surge Island, in about 10 minutes distance, that those entities, that area, can be promoted for micro dairy farming that could immediately increase the level of farming, of dairy production that we have. I also speak to building fodder banks. There is a whole heap of land available unutilized. And one of the reasons that you have highlighted the low yield is because they're not getting adequate nutrition. The farmers would know that there is a period of time that the grass is at its highest nutrition level. And so if you don't catch it at that period, you're getting more fiber than protein. So therefore, after the 8th week, the animal consuming what we call old grass is getting a belly full of fiber, but no protein, crude protein, that then contributes to the milk production. And so therefore, I believe that the Dairy Board could consider multiple fodder banks that they then harvest, maybe even dry it to make hay and distribute at a reasonable cost for persons to consume. And this is something too for the local government ministry, having written such an excellent presentation for my colleague, to consider, because there is a nuisance within local government for lands that are not being maintained, that could offer those lands for fodder bank usage, to have every 8 weeks we produce, sell the grass, and have both the farmers benefit for cheap grass and the property being maintained to reduce risk, especially for criminal participation and criminal facilitation. The final thing I want to say, Minister, is the importance of understanding agro-processing as a central contributor to animal rearing and dairy production. Why agro-processing is important? Because it gives affordable feed to the animals. For example, sugar gives us molasses, which is an important input for the animals. Orange gives us the orange pulp, which is an important input to the animals. Flour mills give us wheat melding and corn offal, which is an important input. The beer producing give us beer wraps, or what we call spent grain. All of those things are affordable inputs that leads to production improvements in both milk production and meat production. But they're unavailable in the main because of the reduced agro-processing entities that exist. If we are to expand animal production, it is going to be essential that we expand agro-processing so that what we call now the fourth quarters, the fifth quarters they call it, the areas of the production that are really not central to the outcomes become available for cheap purchase for the farmers. So if we can get sugar back up to a certain level, then the molasses become available. What we have found since one of the major entities in orange and citrus have gone into their own farming of dairy, there's no availability of the citrus pulp for the farmers anymore. What we have also seen is that with the flour mills also having some connections, we're not seeing the availability. So the food processing, in particular, agro-processing, is going to be, the demand for that drives the availability of feed that can then eventually lead. So sometimes the narrow definition of impact and influence may not cause for the dairy board to see the value in assisting a citrus producer. But in assisting a citrus producer, you create that feed that is necessary. And so therefore, I want you to seriously consider that there needs to be a investment in agro-processing that would then lead to adequate feed for the animal growing and also the results of animal growing, the dairy industry. So please do not pigeonhole the impact and investment into direct cow when there are many other things that can lead to great cow performance. With that, I thank you, Minister. And
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thank...
Sorry, Minister. Member from West Portland,
Oh, sorry.
East Portland, sorry.